So this is the 21:30 hours GMT edition of the Kudila television channel, broadcasting only on the internet under the banner of the Baby Angel Geronimo editions on Monday, the 5th of June 2023. As far as the United Kingdom is concerned, the mainstream so-called political coverage, cover-up, lying, is focused on the promotion of the over-promoted figure called Holly Willoughby. Holly is spelled Holly, but the role that she is performing is, of course, the opposite, as spelled Holy. She is engaged in the unholy task for the commercial purposes, benefits of the corrupt ITV company. Now, she is saying, according to the spiel being retailed in the so-called tabloid or populist outlets, that she's hurt and she's surprised and she's let down by Bob Philip Schofield, with whom she co-presented the program on ITV for more than 12 years. And in those 12 years, they didn't even remotely suggest that either of them was telling any kind of lies. First, the lies of or the lying career, and in it seems lying life or lifestyle of Philip Schofield is that he has lied for nearly 30 years to his wife. He has lied to the children that he had with that lied to wife, and he has lied to everyone else for decades. So, first of all, this is a complete, absolute invention that they are promoting, that Holly is suddenly let down. What did the dirty digger Murdoch scum say this evening? Dirty digger scum says, Holly's what fucking promise? To tell more lies? Furious Holly, she is not furious at all, makes Philip Schofield vow after humiliation of this morning return. Mainstream television will come to the actual viewing numbers in a minute. This morning, fans spot hidden message to Philip Schofield in our emotional review statement. What is the hidden? She's empty, completely empty. This morning, fans are convinced they have worked out Holly Willow's hidden message to Philip Schofield in her emotional TV statement. This is all grotesquely overdone, this whole promotion. The tearful host, 42, only said his name once during the 90-second monologue, despite being best friends for 17 years? Holly said, "It feels very strange indeed sitting here without Phil," but failed to mention him again. Instead, she spoke of feeling shaken, troubled, and let down as she's moving on to a new chapter. What fucking chapter? This is an empty program. It has been grotesquely, persistently empty throughout its kind of appearance by TV program. First of all, the endless, unending years of the racist scum, Richard Medley, and his quote wife, Judy Finnegan, or Funny One, they were empty, absolutely empty. Now, going back to the Dirty Digger Murdoch scum, viewers believe this was a clear sign their friendship is over for good. As Holly continued on with the show's light entertainment topics, one viewer said, "You couldn't even mention his name. What cunt? He was your close friend. We all make mistakes. Very poor from you, Holly." Another added, "Insincere, couldn't even say his name." Then a quick, "Well, that's that. Let's move on now." Someone else said, "Couldn't even say Philip's name." If you've been close friends with someone for so long, no matter how let down by them you feel, you don't just brush them off like she is from Ollie. Another agreed, adding, "She needs to go. I'm going to fight for Alice and Dermot." It head on and genuine tears from Alison. We revealed last week that Philip apologized to Holly for lying to her about his secret friendship and for tainting her public image. How did that taint her? The pair worked together for 14 years since 2009 and were inseparable. Now they no longer speak. Phil told the Sun he had broken all contact and revealed it was his pedophile brother's imprisonment that made her distance herself from the friendship. He has admitted having suicidal thoughts since he was forced out of ITV over the affair scandal that rocked his career. Now, the pair, husband and wife so called, Judy Funny One and the racist scum, Richard Medley, contaminated the air with their lies and their inventions, their diversions, and their racism. So, what this program needs is to be scrapped altogether. And something has to come on for that time slot or longer, dealing with real people, real members of the public, going through real experiences, not only about poverty, about lack of housing, lack of accountability from the people who've been in contact with them or they have been in contact with. And there is nothing like that. There is nothing like that kind of program on any channel on British television. So for the time being, for this particular aspect, I am moving on to other topics, and this will of course be the topic will be returning to based on the evidence now. we have been on air on this program so far. How long have we been? I'll do a time length check. What are they trading on? What are they exploiting? What do they think? We have been just under 11 minutes so far, and we have done about 9 minutes about Holly Willoughby. Now, the item that I want to talk about is this media's running the picture nurse on name is, but the pictures that the media have been always smiling pictures. How does that go? The very devastating, heartbreaking contents of the proceedings. That she is on trial. She died for the murders of serial murders of children, babies, infants in hospital. Why do they run this smiling picture? If they have to run a picture at all, they could find other pictures that would not show her smiling. That is an insult, and that is wounding, really hurtful to the parents, to the loved ones that have lost these infants. Now, going back to the empire and the exploitation by the British media of the empire, this takes us all the way back to the racist, imperialist assumptions, completely wrong, that were allowed to be promoted by Thomas Babington Macaulay. We'll go back to the actual source or the actual quotation of what Macaulay said and what I want to diagnose in this. Macaulay spent the next 4 years in India, where he devoted his efforts to reforming the Indian criminal code, putting the British and natives on an equal legal footing. What the fuck? How could these millions of people be natives and the British not natives? And to establishing an educational system based upon the British model. What fucking British model? And destroyed ancient Indian teaching methods. Macaulay wanted the government. This is dated the is 1835, 2nd of February 1835, minute by the, and they say, I'm just quoting, Honorable T.B. Macaulay, dated the 2nd of February to 1835. It would be grotesque to read the thing. So I'm looking for the bit that I can read just about. So look at the boast that they make. Thomas Babington Macaulay, 1800 to 1859, lived in India. Well, by India, they mean Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh today, for 4 years, from 1834 to 1838. Yet he left, notice this word, unerasable footprints on Indian soil. During his time in India, he decided to introduce English into the education of Indians by deploying government resources in schools and colleges. Fuck them. What fucking liars. Now, this piece with the heading is an Indian website called the Wire.in for India. It says Macaulay's view of Western superiority still holds back the Indian education system. Let's see what they have to say there. And it's written by somebody called Agya Vaska. And it says an 8th standard CBSE student is introduced to Lord Macaulay's educational history through a social sciences chapter called Civilizing the Natives, Educating the Nation, in an attempt to introduce the student to education critically. Under one of the sections in the chapter, Grave Errors of the East, the student is introduced to British scholar Thomas Babington Macaulay. The chapter mentions Macaulay's disregard for Oriental studies and briefly mentions the English Education Act. Of 1835 that followed his important minute. Now, this piece, although it's an Indian website, is written by somebody absolutely ignorant and idiotic and brainwashed themselves. Now, I'm speaking and reading in English, but it's the complete opposite of the style of Macaulay or anybody else. But I'll read that for the evidence. Following this introduction, there is rarely any assessment of the multidimensional effect that this fucking cunt is calling him Lord Macaulay. Fuck him. Other identities, parliamentarian, Occidental thinker, etc., had and still has on the lives of people who receive education in India. They don't fucking receive education, you fucking moron. They receive brainwashing and mental slavery and servitude. So, what is happening, as I said in previous broadcasts and previous publications, I stayed for just over a month in New Delhi. And when I stayed there, I was staying at a hostel in, uh, in the vicinity of the place in New Delhi called Connaught Circus. Connaught is, of course, an imperial colonialist name, and it is still there. And my first and only daily encounter with the others, probably most of the Indian, would happen at breakfast time. And it was all male gatherings on tables, and I noticed the complete and utter mental servitude and slavery on the part of these Indians. So that was more than 50 years ago. Now, I have been contextually and evidentially diagnosing the accessible bits of the Indian films, mainly dubbed into Hindi. And the scripts are awful, and there is hardly any examination in those films of what happened in the 190 years from 1757 to 1947. And that is something I want to contrast with the movement that Imran Khan has started to get going in Pakistan under the banner of Hakiki Azadi. Now, before Imran Khan's Hakiki Azadi came to my notice, I had already started under the heading of contextual diagnosis of the period since August 1947. Contextual diagnosis of what is now India, what is now Pakistan, and what is now Bangladesh. Because all three were part of what used to be called, or what is referred to still as India under the British. There is so many, the list is so long of things that are wrong in all three countries. Although Imran Khan has got his problems with the militaristic resurgence of the military in Pakistan, which are more urgent and more dangerous and more threatening than anything else, he has other problems in terms of understanding the meaning and impact and implication of that slogan, Hakiki Azadi, true independence. So, what we are looking at in the subcontinent is that three countries separately running or existing. For all three countries, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, they are indifferent, put it generally or generously. Generally and generously. They are indifferent to what happened in the 190 years. So that is the government, the so-called political organizations that are doing this indifference. And there is the media, Indian media. If you look at the English language ones, which is what is the easiest way to access because of the availability on the internet, and there is no kind of international translation facilities available. The Indian newspapers, as I said, the English language ones, are more comprehensively brainwashed or are produced, written, commissioned by the more comprehensively brainwashed morons than they should be. And the Pakistani ones are absolutely sinister. The Pakistani newspapers are so timid and stupid that to describe their stupidity and timidity make me have to stop. That is how unbearable they are. And in the context of those two, the Bangladeshi ones are in non existent territory. The, the Bangladeshi ones are supposed to be, if you look at the propaganda, about how Bangladesh came into existence, independence. But there is no independence in the behavior of the Bangladeshi so called outlets. I'm reminded at this moment of the recent news that I have come across. I have come across recently, but the news is 2 years old. The passage of Abdul Ghaffar Chaudhry, Abdul Ghaffar Chaudhry is one of the most corrupt and corrupting self servers that has existed in the territory that is called Bengal, in East Bengal. I first came across his authored items in what used to be called the locked up news magazines, because they were pornographic magazines. I'm not saying he wrote pornography as such, but those magazines that did carry his pieces, I came across them in pornographic magazines. And I didn't buy those pornographic magazines because of the pornographic contents, but because other items that were contained in those magazines were also locked up. But the most significant event that I remember is when the Bangladeshi East Pakistani tycoon Hamidul Haq Chowdhury published the daily Purbodesh in, I think, January 1970. On the front page of the Purbodesh, that I remember, was a piece byline to Abdul Ghaffar Chaudhry, in which he clearly named the Awami League and he clearly criticized the leadership of the Awami League, which was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. That is there. And in the years that have followed the year of 71 and the surrender to the Indian army, or the Pakistan army, on the 16th of December 1971, Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry assumed, without anyone to my knowledge to this day noticing his lying, he assumed a performance that was completely false and untruthful, saying words to the effect that the late Sheikh Mujib was his closest friend and that the late Sheikh Mujib trusted him like no one. Now, I covered, that is to say, I reported on the activities, political activities of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman from 1967 until the election of 1970, December 1970. That is 3 years is a long time. 3 years is a very long time. And I covered or reported on Sheikh Mujib before 67, but this is the context because these 3 years I spent in trying to observe Sheikh Mujib at physical locations, events that he attended, political events. And I don't remember I do not remember ever seeing Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry at any of those events. I didn't expect him to be there, and I didn't see him there. So when I read the Purbadesh piece, Kuffar Chaudhry condemning Sheikh Mujibur Rahman for being unfit and undemocratic, I wasn't surprised. What has surprised me since then is to come across claims by this liar that he was a not only close friend of the Sheikh Mujib, but he was so close that nobody else had the proximity with Mujib that he did. He could not. Now, the fact that Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry is a liar, made up things, I have diagnosed this from 1987. Well, 1987, before 87, let's say 1980. He wrote a piece in London, and his writings have been, of course, Bengali or Bangla. Anyone who says that he wrote English is lying. He couldn't write English. Anything that appeared in his name in the English language must have been written by somebody else based on his kind of comments and contributions. He wrote a piece in the Bengali language, and in that piece, Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry made an insertion of a paragraph in which he said that one day he was traveling in the London Underground system when he came across two or three highly educated, highly intelligent politicians and writers and thinkers from South America. Now, I have traveled in the London Underground system, and I travel on the public network every week. I've more than 50 years. And to this day, I have not once come across one individual, even from London, that I could actually have a conversation with about anything of any substance or relevance, let alone going to the depth of discussion and discourse that Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry claimed he had had with his people from South America during one journey on the underground system. There is this practical difficulty. How to tell that X or Y, the fellow is politician, a thinker, activist, whatever. How do you know that? And the average journey on the train system lasts less than an hour. How do you determine who that individual is or who those individuals, according to his claim, were? And where do we begin? How do they recognize you? That is Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry. And how do they reciprocate? And where do you start because you don't know who they are? Because this journey is not a programmed journey scheduled by a group of officials who set up this thing as a part of planned exceptional event. So when he made up that kind of story, I knew that this was not only a brazen liar, but he was a liar of the kind of contemptible disregard for basic common sense. Then I came across various pieces about him traveling with Sheikh Mujib in the Arabic speaking world. Now, Sheikh Mujib was not traveling that often, but this one I think was in Libya or some place near Libya. That is the fictional, factual account that Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry published. And he claimed that he had a very secret, deep secret conversation with Sheikh Mujib during that trip. He couldn't. Because while Sheikh Mujib was in office, that is to say, in post as prime minister or president, before he was assassinated in August 1975, he was guarded. And the way that he was guarded would have meant that nobody who was not part of his guard or very close gathering of people would have access to him, let alone have access for long enough to chat as if they were sitting at coffee shop. That simply did not exist. So everything that Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry has left behind by way of memoirs must be treated as 99% being untruthful fantasies by him. When he arrived in Tower Hamlets, he did so at the invitation of people from the Siloti speaking community that he, Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry, had hoodwinked, had misled into thinking that he was going to be delivering for them a journal that they had not seen before and that it would become very popular. It was an event that was facilitated by people that were under the brainwashing fans of the Awami League. And this was the title, they called it Notun Din. Well, Notun Din as a phrase is not new. Because, for example, the BBC television program, channel BBC One television channel, had a slot way back called Naya Zindagi, Naya Jeevan. So it was like new life, new life. And but Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry persuaded these people to invest or to give away to him significantly large sums of money in context for starting this Notun Din. But the Notun Din was not a success, either journalistically or stylistically at all. And it wasn't long before they fell out. Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry was called a liar, an exploiter of the Silotis, an insulter of the Silotis, and he was ousted. So that is Abdul Kuffar Chaudhry. It is part of the continuing updater commentary on the history of Bangladesh, and I am referring to him because I was talking about the newspaper in Bangladesh. Now, I spent, I think, 8 years, 9 years in what is now Bangladesh, writing for both English and Bangla language publications. I started, of course, in Silot. where the family of Aminur Rashid Chaudhary owned the Jugoberi, which is Bangla, and used to be called English one the Eastern Herald. Now, the Eastern Herald had been started by the English, the British, because they wanted to have their own outlet. And most of the people that were supporters of the Eastern Herald were scattered across the tea plantation in Silot. Remember, Silot was in Assam, and Assam is the place tea comes, tea in the subcontinent. And so, therefore, so I started writing both in Eastern Herald and in Jukaberi. Remember what I did? I never worked for a pay, a remuneration. And very early on, I decided that I need to write, not use writing to earn a living. I think I didn't need the money because I had enough support from my mother. But even if I didn't have any support from my mother, I would not want to write in return for money. And I haven't. So when I arrived in Dhaka, I mean, in the newspapers, that is, I continued the practice that I had started while contributing to the Jugaveri and the Eastern Herald. So I wrote in various titles, but with one condition, that I'd rather not write or publish than write and publish something on order, to order, by either an editor, a commissioner, or a handler. I never did, and I don't. So I started writing 1961, let's say. So what is this now? 1961, 71 is 10 years, 81 is 20 years, 91 is 30 years, 2001 is 40 years, 2011 is 50 years, 2022 is 60 years now. This is 61 years of my writing. I've been writing for 61 years with no money in return. And the reason has always been to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the truth has to be supported, independently verifiable truth, not just because I say it is the truth. It has to be independently verifiable. And one of the most important things, ways that the independent verifiability of a particular statement, a comment, a piece is done is by consulting more than one source. When in Dhaka, the press club in Tofkhana Road in Dhaka was a place where I would go sometimes, and especially I'd go there to consult the newspapers that were not available at ordinary news agents. And I came across or bumped into some of the people that were actually editors or were holding posts, executive posts or senior posts in the print titles. And the one that I am thinking about is the one who published the weekly English paper called The Holiday. It was called Holiday, but it was an English, very critical holiday. And his name was Inayatullah Khan. Now, Inayatullah Khan, he claimed, or his fan base promoted the idea that he was the most able English language journalist in the province that was East Pakistan, etc., etc. So one day, for some reason, I don't remember the exact starting of the conversation, but he said something intending that to be at my expense. And I had seen him the previous evening at a reception organized and held at the what used to be called the Intercontinental Hotel. The Intercontinental Hotel was, as the one that I'm thinking about, was not far from the University of Dhaka Arts Building, not from far from the racecourse. And I had seen him at the reception drink alcohol with the others. So I retaliated his comment, barbed comment about me by telling him that he was a drinker of alcohol. I wasn't. And so on. The point I'm making is that I found none of these people that were either editors or publishers of the newspapers in then East Pakistan intellectually equipped, morally equipped to publish anything that the population, the country, the society needed. The coverage or the concealment, as I have defined newspaper coverage in the last 48 hours. The reporting of the political events, let's say from 1967 until 1970, was ignorant, untruthful, as events have shown in the last, let's say, 52 years since 16th of December 1971. Bangladesh is not an independent country politically because it is an agency of the regime in India. And the people of Bangladesh are not able to freely exercise their opinions about the priorities of the country, about the needs of the country's people, and the failures of the country's so called state to provide the services that the people in Bangladesh very badly need. And especially, more importantly, the people of Bangladesh were promised in the implicit slogan. There could not be any explicit slogan, and I'll come to the reason for that. The implicit slogan that was kind of in circulation since the publication of the declaration by the Awami League of the 6 Point Program in the second half of the 1960s. So the judiciary is completely corrupt, the media is completely servile and stupid, and the government is beyond condemnation, corrupt, and servile to the India regime. And I have discussed Imran Khan and Pakistan long enough now, so I don't have to go into the details of what I see is happening in Pakistan, except to say that the Tehreek-e-Insaf party, which objectively appears to be the only opposition political movement in the country, needs to very fast recharge itself, and instead of cowering before the military, it must mobilize the people of Pakistan in a way that, within quotation, let's say, persuades the military to stage a retreat and to allow the democratic movement to function and to help the country reach the objective towards establishing Hakiki Azadi. And internationally, Imran Khan has got a good following, support base in Canada, in the US, and in most of Western Europe. Imran Khan should fully tap those support bases and mobilize the people ethically and morally to come together in terms of their solidarity with the Tehreek-e-Insaf and with Imran Khan to create such an international outrage, outpouring of support for Imran Khan and Tehreek-e-Insaf, that no military regime in Pakistan or the no military agency, no military cabal thinks it's safe for its own survival to risk attacking Imran Khan or Tehreek-e-Insaf. We shall continue on that one in due course. But this is my advice to Imran Khan and Tehreek-e-Insaf at the moment. As to the events locally, say in Tower Hamlets, let's check what is happening on Tower Hamlets. So there is this piece by Tom Sanders on the website metro.co.uk, and it's dated the 2nd of June, that is Friday. And the heading is Met Police Defends Heavy-handed Eviction of Homeless People from Shelter. It says around 100 riot police were deployed to evict people from a homeless shelter in East London on Thursday. Officers evicted 29 people from the building in Tower Hamlets which had been taken over by a group called Autonomous Winter Shelter, who said it had been providing shelter to around 40 people since November 2022. In videos posted online, officers were seen pushing and chasing after people on foot after arriving at around 10 a.m. to conduct the raid. Alex, an activist who has been living inside the peaceful community since last year, told the Evening Standard that the police activity was crazy. We have over 40 people in here, but a lot of people ran away when they saw the riot squad. It's probably one of the most expensive attempted evictions I have ever seen, they said. Some people are still inside, but we are leaving. They gave us no warning. They came with a whole riot squad for homeless people. It was horrible. Can you imagine? I'm very angry. Others were terrified and ran away. Most of the organizers are just trying to help rough sleepers. Police became aware of the shelter in December 2022 after the owners of the building complained the homeless people were occupying it illegally. As part of their investigation, officers had also attended the venue on numerous occasions but were reportedly refused entry by the occupants. On the 10th of April 2023, residents were issued an eviction notice, but the AWS group decided they would not obey it because of the need to provide housing. The AWS said 6 residents were survivors of a fatal house fire in Shadwell in early March, who had been provided with temporary accommodation by Tower Hamlets Council, which is believed to have ended. Around 100 protesters turned up to defend the residents from eviction. As police issued a dispersal notice to the residents and protesters, cops chased and threw to the ground some people who tried to escape. At least one person was injured after being seized by police. They were later de arrested as protesters stood by the police van. Tower Hamlets Mayor Luthuraman had previously written to police telling them to call off the raid, endorsing a previous email to the Met from the Advisory Service for Squatters that said, in the circumstances, police intervention would clearly be inappropriate and we would suggest unlawful. But the Metropolitan Police defended its heavy handed response, with Police Superintendent Andy Port saying that despite officers having sympathy for the homeless people in the shelter, they were breaking the law. He said, we are aware of concerns raised both via social and mainstream media, particularly around the fact the address was being used as a homeless shelter and that police attendants appear to be heavy handed. Whilst we have sympathy for those who were using the premises, ultimately they have been acting outside the law in occupying the venue, as well as acting on the wishes of the owner. More importantly, we have taken this action in response to a growing number of complaints and concerns reported to us by local residents. We did not want it to come to the point where we have had to escort individuals from a premises, but attempts to engage with the group had proved unsuccessful. In terms of our attendance this morning, because of the lack of engagement from those inside it, was difficult to know how many people were present. So we had to prepare accordingly. No one was arrested. As police officers, we are here to serve our communities and uphold the law. But I know that this incident has understandably raised questions and concerns from those who may be unaware of the background and the context. We will continue to be open and transparent with the public in explaining the reasons behind our actions. An AWS spokesperson said, "We do what we do because councils and the state fail us all the time. We do not, however, have even a fraction of the resources while the police, while people are being referred to us. The threat to our existence remains. Taramlet suffered the highest rate of homeless deaths among all the London boroughs in 2021, according to the Office for National Statistics. Last year, the Department of Leveling Up, Housing and Communities recorded 1,510 empty homes in the borough. So, this is the only a token reference to Luthraman. There is no answer to the various charges of Taramlet's council failing us, failing the people. As for role of Taramlet's council, let me just remind anyone watching this for the first time of how bad Taramlet's council is ordinarily. It is now 8 calendar years since these four girls left Tower Hamlets for Syria. Sharmina Begum left in December 2014, followed by, sequentially, followed by the three quote friends, Shamima Begum, Amir and Kadir, in February 2015. Now, these girls at the time that all of them left, and they were owed which is Tower Hamlets Council. Now, if the Tower Hamlets Council had discharged its duties to safeguard these children, it is possible that these children would not have been brainwashed, radicalized, groomed, whatever, and they would have been in a different state now. Tower Hamlets Council has not done that. And for the period of their being groomed, radicalized, whatever, Lutfur Rahman has been in post and 10 until he was ousted in April 2015 by the Election Commission. Now, Lutfur Rahman has not done his duty to safeguard these children. On the metro, ignorant about most of the things the Tower Hamlets Council could do and should do and has not done. Checking their website, let's check the Tower Hamlets Council website again and see if they have made any difference. But there is no mention. Let's check in the. Essentially, there is nothing in the Town Council website about the evictions. There are things headed evictions, but these are nothing to do with the particular events that we are talking about. So, this is typical Tower Hamlets in denial and in breach of the law and the legal duties. If you take the position of the Kudilar campaign defending the community in the east end of London on one side, and you take the behavior of the various so called voluntary organizations, most of which are operated with funding from the council or the funding from the central government through the council, you can see that the funded organizations are very quiet about the role, the behavior of the council. The only party or entity in Tower Hamlets in the public that is not silent is the Kudilar campaign. We shall be talking more about this in the next edition. There are many other topics that we could discuss, but we shall end this particular edition here at 1 hour, 8 minutes or 9 minutes, ending at 22:37 GMT.